Today, I'm going to beat Pokemon Platinum using only Darkrai. This Pokemon has some extremely good stats. 70 HP, 90 attack, defense, and special defense, 125 speed, and 135 special attack. It also has a fantastic ability, Bad Dreams, which I'm going to cover in a little bit. But that's where the good news ends. Because Darkrai is a legendary Pokemon, it has a slow growth rate, which always hurts these solo challenges. It's also a dark type, but its starting moves are Ominous Wind and Disable. That's not a problem in this battle against the rival at the beginning of the game, because his Pokemon aren't normal types, but there are so many others in the early game that are. Now, using Struggle doesn't take that long because Ominous Wind only has 5 PP and Disable has 20. But in Generation 4, whenever you use Struggle, it inflicts 1/4 of your maximum HP in recoil damage every turn, making it incredibly hard to level up using the move of Last Resort. Luckily in Pokemon Platinum, after you receive the Pokedex and you leave the professor's lab, he gives you the TM for Return. But Darkrai's base friendship is 0, so right now Return's base power is 1. This move does give me an option to fight normal types, but as you can see against this Starly, it is doing so little damage that I don't think this is going to be the most efficient way to level up in the early game. My goal is to get to level 11 as soon as I can so that I have quick attack and then I can damage normal Pokemon, well, normally. If I go to Route 202, sometimes Shinx will show up, which are mono-electric types, so I can attack them with Ominous Wind, and this gains experience a lot faster than trying to fight Pokemon on Route 1. Additionally, I can also find Kricketot on this route, so that's another Pokemon that I can knock out a little bit faster. Still, the slow growth rate lives up to its name because training here is such a slog. I can't even fight the first trainer because he has a Starly, and so I'm gonna need a way to knock it out quickly, and I figured I would have to level up over the next damage rounding threshold at level 8 to even be able to pull this off. Now, friendship does increase more quickly when your Pokemon has a lower friendship value. That said, I get to 22 friendship at level 8 and Return's base power is still only 8. So I decided to fight the first trainer and use Struggle to knock out his Starly. This does end up working out for Darkrai since its stats are so good, but look at how close this battle ended up being, because I survived with only 11 hit points. That's the downside of using Struggle in Generation 4. Still, at this point, because I'm able to knock out these trainers' Pokemon quickly, and each of them only have one team member, I can just use a potion, then defeat the next lady and the final person before making my way into Jubilife City. Here, I decided to heal and then continue my training inside of the school with Return. It has a base power of 11 now, which I thought would be okay. Turns out no, my level 9 Darkrai is not able to knock out this level 6 Bidoof. That's largely because the enemy has a potion here and heals to full health, and as a result, I am forced to take a blackout here. Darkrai is not off to a good start. After fighting all of the trainers in the surrounding region, I end up grinding on wild Pokemon using Return, which is slow going, but finally, after 16 minutes, I am able to get Darkrai to level 11 and learn Quick Attack. With most Pokemon, Return would be doing equivalent damage, but in this case, its base power is still only 16, so Quick Attack is a major upgrade. Today for this challenge, I have had the rival pick Piplup because the Steel type resists the Dark type in Generation 4. Still, I don't think Darkrai is going to struggle against the rival that much in this solo challenge. Now, luckily for me, I have a special move in the form of Ominous Wind, and I'm hoping that its 5 PP is going to be enough for me to manage Roark, because I don't want to have to train up more. There are no other moves that Darkrai can realistically get for that fight, unless I want to spend a ridiculous amount of time getting Hypnosis at level 20. Beyond that, Feint Attack at 29, Nightmare at 38, Double Team at 47, Haze at 57, and then Darkrai finally starts to get access to its good moves. Dark Void at level 66, which is a sleep-inducing move with 80% accuracy. This is such a fantastic move, and it makes sense. It's Darkrai's signature. Then at level 75, it gets access to Nasty Plot, which I think is the best move in Generation 4. At level 84, it gets Dream Eater, which actually might be okay when paired with Bad Dreams as well as Dark Void. And finally, at level 93, it gets access to Dark Pulse, but I won't have to wait till level 93 to teach this to Darkrai since the TM is available in Victory Road. And speaking of TMs, Darkrai gets access to a lot of really good stuff. Remember that Calm Mind is in the post game, so I don't have access to it in these solo challenges, but I do have access to moves like Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Psychic, Shockwave, Sludge Bomb, Rock Tomb, Aerial Ace, Charge Beam, Drain Punch, Shadow Claw. Dark Pulse, X Scissor, and Poison Jab. The really unfortunate thing for Darkrai here is just that all of the good moves come much later into the playthrough, so like the early game, the game after Roark is going to continue to be fairly slow. But first, I need to get by the Rock-type specialist, so is Darkrai's ridiculously high special attack paired with Ominous Wind enough to manage him? Let's find out. Geodude is first. This Pokemon has terrible special defense, so I easily one-shot. No Omni Boost on turn 1. Onix's special defense isn't quite as low as Geodude's, so it's able to survive a single hit and use Rock Throw. But this move is doing almost no damage to Darkrai. Roark heals with a potion, which is a bit scary because my next Ominous Wind does not knock out the Onix. Which means I'm running low on PP, only 2 more uses for the Cranidos. I thought that the best thing here was using Quick Attack to knock out the Onix, which takes 2 more turns. It is really slow, but I want to have as many Ominous Winds as possible for the Cranidos. The question is, will I be able to 2-shot? And the answer is yes, I will. The Cranidos goes for Leer on turn 1, not even attacking, and then Darkrai knocks it out. So Roark ended up being really easy for Darkrai. This fight could have been so much faster if I had gotten Omni Boost on turn 1 against the Geodude. I think then I would have one-shot the Onix. The next section of the game brings with it a moveset upgrade for Darkrai. In the Ravaged Path, I can pick up the Rock Tomb TM, which I teach in the place of Disable. There are no other available upgrades unless I want to grind on wild Pokemon to level up to 20 to get access to Hypnosis prior to Commander Mars. But doing that doesn't make any sense since Darkrai is only level 17 when it's ready to fight her. Zubat's first, and right away Ominous Wind boosts all of my stats. Alright, that's essentially perfect because the Purugly I cannot hit with a special move. I'm going to have to use physical damage against it, and in this case I think that Quick Attack is my best option. I don't want to miss with Rock Tomb for only a 25% increase in damage. This is slow going, and it's actually kind of sketchy because the Purugly is doing decent damage with Scratch. That's one thing that I always forget about Darkrai. It is not a ghost type, so it can be hit by normal type moves. It feels like it should be a ghost type. Its design looks very ghost-like, but no, it's a mono dark type. Still, its stats after the Omni Boost are good enough, so I'm able to survive the Purugly on orange health and win against Commander Mars. The Pachirisu inside of Eterna Forest is not an issue. Now, while here I do some training, leveling up to 20 where I teach Hypnosis in the place of Quick Attack. Return is almost on par in terms of base power. Right now it's 39, so soon it's going to overtake what Quick Attack would have been doing. Last time in Pokemon Platinum, I played the game with Spiritomb, and I was very surprised when it ended up struggling against Gardenia. And I could see the same thing being true here for Darkrai. But one thing it has going for it is its weight. It weighs 111 pounds, which is just enough to have Grassnot start doing 80 base power. However, Spiritomb, which weighs 238 pounds, takes 100 base power from Grassnot. But I don't think this is a really big advantage. After all, Darkrai has a slow growth rate, and its base stats defensively are lower than Spiritomb's were. So let's see how the second gym leader goes. I'm not optimistic about this one. Gardenia leads with Turtwig. It loves to set up Reflect on turn 1, which is annoying, and I wanted to avoid this by using Hypnosis so that it doesn't set up, and then I can use Ominous Wind to knock it out. This will preserve damage of my physical moves, and it's also going to chip away at her lead because of Bad Dreams. This ability deals 1/8 max HP in damage every turn the opponent is asleep. It's essentially Nightmare that does less damage on every turn, but you don't have to spend a turn setting it up. While knocking out the Turtwig, I'm able to boost all of my stats by 1 stage before moving on to the Cherrim, but then I miss my Hypnosis against it, and I was going for this move to try and prevent her from using Leech Seed, which drains a lot of health every turn. Because of this, the Cherrim is able to drain Darkrai down under half health by the time I knock it out. And then Roserade comes in, and with my last Ominous Wind, I am not able to do half. Plus, it has a Citrus Berry, so this is going to be a 3-hit if I had Ominous Winds, but I don't. I have to use my physical moves now, and these aren't doing as much damage, and I'm losing health every turn to Leech Seed. She's gaining health, and because of this, Darkrai is not able to pull through, and I take a reset to Gardenia. As long as I'm successful with my use of Hypnosis against the Cherrim, I think that this fight should be fine. And in the next battle, I do successfully put it to sleep, and then I get an Ominous Wind boost before the Roserade comes in. I guess I should put her final Pokemon to sleep as well. I miss, get paralyzed. I have a Cherry Berry though, so I get to use Hypnosis again. but I'm making a mistake here. The Cherrim set up Safeguard, so obviously Hypnosis isn't going to work. I should have just been attacking. I am so sad that I did that. Anyways, Ominous Wind is doing roughly 1/3 in damage. The Roserade is doing decent damage with Grass Knot, but then I get a stroke of luck, and I think I needed it in this case after my misplays. Darkrai crits with Ominous Wind on its second turn, and Roserade goes down. With this badge, I can now use Cut outside of battle and go back to the old Chateau, where I can find myself the Dread Plate, which increases the damage of Dark-type moves by 20%. The problem is Darkrai doesn't have any Dark-type moves yet because Feint Attack is learned at level 29, and right now I'm only level 22. Darkrai has so much early game anti-synergy. Luckily, Commander Jupiter isn't much of a problem. I'm able to one-shot the Zubat, then I just put the Skuntank to sleep because I have to knock it out over many turns. Rock Tomb is my best move here, so using Hypnosis helps me chip away at the Skuntank because I get the damage from Bad Dreams. Now, it's not entirely true that we have to wait until level 29 to get access to a Dark-type move, because outside of the Galactic Building, I could have picked up Thief before fighting the Skuntank. This move is physical and only has base 40 power, but I guess it gets the same type attack bonus, and it also can use the boost from the Dread Plate, making it have a higher effective power when compared with Ominous Wind, but again, it's physical, so we're using our lower attacking stat. Now, continuing the early game anti-synergy, I am going to go into Wayward Cave. In here is the TM for Earthquake, which is a fantastic addition to most Pokemon's moveset this early into the playthrough. But for Darkrai, which can learn so much coverage through TM and HM, it cannot learn Earthquake. So this is another good move that comes early on that Darkrai just can't make use of. The only reason I came in here was to collect rare candies, because I think leveling up early into this playthrough is going to be key when my moves aren't that good. In Amity Square, there are two items that potentially could help Darkrai with the playthrough. Number one is the Amulet Coin, and number two is the Spooky Plate. The reason the Amulet Coin could be helpful is because in the next section of the game, in a lot of cases, you want to earn as much money as possible before reaching Veilstone City. Then you can purchase TMs from the Game Corner. I won't be able to earn enough money to buy Psychic, which is unfortunate, but I could potentially earn enough money to purchase Swords Dance. I'm going to complain about a Pokemon getting access to Swords Dance now, and I'm sure that's going to make a lot of you angry. But the fact that Darkrai gets this move is very frustrating to me because it pushes you towards using a physical set on this Pokemon until much later into the game, leaving its outrageously high special attack unused, which is just so disappointing. The fact that it learns Nasty Plot at level 75 means I think there is a chance in this playthrough that we don't even get there by the time we're facing Cynthia. I think there's an alternative way to play this though, since Dark Void does come a little bit earlier at level 66, and that is to use sleep-inducing moves instead of Swords Dance to smooth out some of the bumps while prioritizing a fully special set. And that's what I'm going to go for in this playthrough instead of working my way towards Swords Dance. I'm curious to know what you would do if you were playing Platinum with Darkrai. Would you go for Swords Dance at this point in the game since it is such a fantastic move? I just really don't want to use a physical set. Anyways, Fantina's up next, and I anticipate that she's going to be pretty easy for Darkrai to manage. Actually, Editor Scott here. As you will have seen, I just had a reset to a random gym trainer. I totally skipped over this when I was first doing the narration. I think subconsciously I just didn't want all of you to see me suffer with a legendary Pokemon. Alright, now time for Fantina. Her first Pokemon is Duskull. I've said Dusclops so many times in these videos, but every time I do it, especially when it's intentional, I feel a little bit bad. I do actually know which Pokemon she starts the fight with, but so often I mix up these names. It's just like Rhyhorn and Rhydon. Those two are really easy to accidentally slip up and say the wrong one. Her lead is a one-shot, and then I move on to her Mismagius. Ominous Wind does more than half. It heals with a Citrus Berry, but it still looks like I have enough damage to KO. Unfortunately, I get hit by Confuse Ray, but it doesn't prevent my next attack, and her ace goes down. That leaves only Haunter, and here things go just about as badly as they could. Darkrai hits itself a bunch, takes chip damage from the Haunter, which is going for Shadow Claw. Eventually, the Haunter puts Darkrai to sleep. I continue taking chip damage, and my health gets very low. 11 hit points? Okay, I have to wake up now. I don't. Haunter goes for Shadow Claw again. Darkrai falls to 5 hit points. Okay, now or never. Darkrai wakes up, but it's still confused, luckily snapping out on this turn using Ominous Wind and Haunter Feints. Okay, the rival outside of Hearthome City is next. Remember when I said he wasn't going to be a problem during this playthrough? Yeah, I was really wrong, because the Staravia that comes in first has Intimidate, lowering my physical attack, and Ominous Wind cannot attack. So I have to use physical moves here, and they're doing pathetic damage. Also, as I chip away at his lead, this is very scary, because the Staravia has Endeavor, which sets the opponent's HP equal to the user's HP. Therefore, when it goes to it, it takes Darkrai all the way down to red health, leaving me in a terrible position for the remainder of the battle. And I'm not even able to knock out the Staravia because it goes for quick attack, gets a critical hit, and Darkrai faints. Okay, so let's try this again. Unfortunately, Staravia also likes to set up with double team, and while it doesn't go for Endeavor this time, I miss so many times that it still takes Darkrai down to low health before I knock it out. Once again, I am left in a bad position for the remaining Pokemon. Luckily, I can use Ominous Wind against all of them, but I don't have enough damage to one-shot the Ponyta, so it does chip damage. I don't have enough damage to two-shot the Prinplup, so it's able to attack with Bubble Beam twice and finish Darkrai. It's really disappointing too, because I got an Omni Boost right before it knocked me out. So the solution here is using Hypnosis on the Staravia so that it can't mess me up with Endeavor or Double Team, just praying that it doesn't wake up and go for Endeavor like it did in the first fight. And then, with full health, the rest of the fight is much easier. I get an Ominous Wind boost on the Ponyta, and from there I'm able to two-shot the Prinplup and easily clean up the final Roselia. On Route 215, I can pick up the TM for Shockwave. This is the second special move that Darkrai has gained access to during this playthrough. That said, its base power is only 60, and with the Spooky Plate, Ominous Wind is going to be doing more damage. If I wanted to get rid of a move, I could teach over Thief or Return right now, but I didn't think that giving up Hypnosis made a lot of sense since it is able to solve problems even if it's inconsistent. There are multiple Return TMs in the game, but I have to buy them from the game corner for 8,000 coins, so giving up Return doesn't make a lot of sense, and Darkrai is about to get to level 29 where it can learn Feint Attack in the place of Thief. So I didn't really have a move that I wanted to give up in order to get access to Shockwave. At least not right now. Maybe teaching it before Crash or Wake will make sense. Ace Trainer Dennis luckily doesn't cause any problems, and then I make my way into Veilstone City. I'm gonna bemoan the fact here that I cannot purchase the Psychic TM. It costs 8,000 coins, which is 160,000 Pokédollars, and after I sell all of my high-priced items in the department store, I have roughly 30,000 Pokédollars. This is your proof that even if I had used the amulet coin, I wouldn't have been able to earn enough money. Okay, so the fighting type gym is next. I'm pretty scared for this one. I don't even know if it makes sense for Darkrai to try it right now. Maybe I should go all the way to Pastoria City and fight a bunch of additional trainers, then use rare candies and backtrack to Maylene after. But candying before the 4th gym leader with a slow growth rate Pokemon, even in Platinum version, doesn't seem like a good idea. Instead, I'm going to take the risky approach, just fight Maylene at level 30 and try to win with Hypnosis. After all, Darkrai's fast, so maybe the fact that I'm moving first against all of her Pokemon is the advantage that I need. Meditite is first, and it's not a very good lead for her to have. I can use Ominous Wind and easily one-shot, giving me a chance for an Omni Boost early into the fight. Also, I have enough damage to one-shot here, and then I move on to the Machoke. Unfortunately, I miss Hypnosis, get hit by Rock Tomb, which lowers my speed, and now Lucario is faster than Darkrai. Even though I'm able to knock out her second Pokemon, the Lucario just comes in, uses Drain Punch, and that's it. The next fight is so much worse. Meditite goes for Fake Out, gets a critical hit, deals decent damage, and then because my health is lower, the Machoke does not try to speed control with Rock Tomb, instead using Karate Chop, and so I don't even make it to her ace this time around. I'm hoping that third time's the charm. I put the Lucario to sleep, which is a good start. But remember that the Steel type resists the Dark and Ghost type until Generation 6. Because of this, my damage is absolutely terrible against her ace. All of my moves are going to 3-shot no matter what I do. I went for Return here on turn 1 so that I could use Ominous Wind on the following 2 turns, hopefully avoiding her using a healing item. However, Lucario wakes up, uses Force Palm, paralyzes Darkrai, then moves first and knocks me out. Okay, this is going really badly. Maybe I should have done the training. Or maybe this was the right choice, because in my 4th fight, I get an Omni Boost on turn 1 against the Meditite. Then I put Machoke to sleep right away, and I'm able to knock it out without taking additional damage. Lucario comes in. Okay, Hypnosis, please work. And it does. With Lucario asleep, I'm able to use Ominous Wind. The second one of these boosts me again, and because of that, I shrug off the Force Palm, which luckily does not paralyze. I hit another Ominous Wind, and Lucario goes down. Okay, so I was able to luck through Maylene. I think this was faster than doing the extra training, but I can see why you wouldn't want to do this, because in the worst case scenario, I could have been stuck there for quite a lot longer. Inside Pastoria City, I have to fight the rival again, and the last time I went up against him, he really shook my confidence, so I was worried about this fight. This time around though, I have Feint Attack, so Double Team from the Staravia is not going to be effective. It still has Endeavor, and while it doesn't use this move, it still does a lot of damage with Wing Attack, taking me down to orange health before I knock it out. Alright, I guess I should use Hypnosis on the Ponyta and try and avoid damage until the Prinplup, because I anticipate it's going to get multiple turns to attack. I am able to successfully pull this off against the Ponyta and move on to his ace. Here, I'm also going to go for Hypnosis. I'm addicted to this move after all. It puts the Prinplup to sleep, and then with Bad Dreams, I am able to two-shot when using Ominous Wind. That leaves only Roselia, and I wanted to leave things up to chance here because I went for Hypnosis again. It works, and because of that, I pull through with a victory against this rival on my first attempt. Inside of Crasher Wake's gym, Darkrai levels up to 37, and I had to make a choice here. Do I want to fight him at this level, or do I want to use some rare candies now and try and make this battle a little bit easier? Crasher Wake is typically one of the most difficult gym leaders in Pokemon Platinum, so I decided to go for the rare candies here. 7 of them gets Darkrai over 3 damage rounding thresholds to level 44. I briefly considered teaching Shockwave, but I decided against it, thinking that Ominous Wind, the Spooky Plate, and Hypnosis would be enough. Gyarados is first. I really regret not teaching Shockwave for this because I have to 3-shot using Ominous Wind, burning a bunch of my PP right at the beginning of the battle. And then Crasher Wake uses a Hyper Potion healing, and I have to use Feint Attack to knock out his lead. Because this would take so many turns due to Intimidate, I put the Gyarados to sleep, chip away with Bad Dreams as well as Feint Attack, and knock out his lead without taking any more damage. Alright, that went about as well as it could have. Floatzel comes in next. Of course, Darkrai's faster. I use Hypnosis, put it to sleep right away. Ominous Wind is doing decent damage, and while the Floatzel does wake up, it goes for Brine, and right now Darkrai is just above 50% health. So this move doesn't have increased damage, and I knock his ace out on the next turn, leaving only the Quagsire. It's pretty defensive, so I decided to put it to sleep with Hypnosis, use my last PP of Ominous Wind, and then chip away with Feint Attack. I'm glad I did things this way because Crasher Wake uses another healing item, saving the Quagsire, making me take many more turns to knock it out. I was so worried he was going to attack and mess me up with one of his moves. Everything the Quagsire has is really trolly: Mud Shot, Rock Tomb, and Water Pulse, as well as Yawn. But fortunately, it just keeps snoozing and gives Darkrai the win. Okay, not teaching Shockwave there makes absolutely no sense. I don't want to use physical moves. I should have let go of Return at this point in the run. And since the foggy region of the map is next, I do end up teaching Shockwave in its place before exploring this area. Here, I can also exchange Ominous Wind for Shadow Ball. This does give up my ability to set up at this point in the game, but Hypnosis is filling that role, so I think that Shadow Ball's increased damage is going to be more of a benefit for Darkrai. Cyrus is next, and this battle's pretty simple since Shockwave is super effective against 2 of his Pokemon. I was a bit surprised that the Golbat ended up pulling through on red health, but it didn't end up changing the outcome of the fight. Now, since I have access to Surf outside of battle, I can backtrack to the Valley Windworks and pick up the Thunderbolt TM, which I replace Shockwave with since I never need to go back to the foggy route. The rival in Canalsave City is next. I can one-shot the Staraptor with Thunderbolt, but then Heracross comes in and I have to two-shot using Shadow Ball, which after the Spooky Plates boost is doing slightly more damage when compared with my electric type attack. Unfortunately here, I am hit by Brick Break before knocking out his fighting type, and it did almost half damage, but I also have super effective damage against the Empoleon now, so I'm a little bit more confident here. The Rapidash does a small amount before I knock it out in 2 turns, Empoleon comes in, and Thunderbolt's able to one-shot. Roserade's last, and while Shadow Ball can't one-shot, the Roserade just goes for Toxic Spikes, throwing its last chance for damage, and Darkrai knocks it out. Okay, so Byron's gym. We do not have good moves for this one. Shadow Ball, Feint Attack, and Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt is completely ineffective against Steelix because it's a ground type, so I have to use either a resisted Shadow Ball or a resisted Feint Attack. Obviously Shadow Ball for special damage is the better choice, and it's doing more damage than I was expecting. Ace Trainer Caesar's Scissor has super effective damage with X Scissor, and it does massive damage to Darkrai. I put it to sleep, and then I thought that I was finished because the Scissor does wake up, but it doesn't attack with X-Scissor again, instead using Slash, and Darkrai just barely survives. Because of that misplay, I'm able to knock out his only Pokemon and move on with the gym. By the way, my hypothesis for what happened there is that it saw that Slash could knock out Darkrai with a good damage roll, so it went for the move, because the AI randomizes between moves that have a chance to knock out. At least that's how it works in Generation 3. Then when the actual damage was calculated, it got a bad roll with Slash, and because of that, Darkrai was able to pull through. Brianna's Bronzor at the end of the gym are annoying as always, taking multiple turns to knock out, even when I'm using Shadow Ball. Exiting this fight, my Darkrai did not have full health, and I also didn't have any healing items. I didn't want to waste time going all the way back through the puzzle inside of the gym to get a heal at the Pokemon Center or to pick up more items. Knowing that Byron is one of the worst gym leaders in Pokemon Platinum, I decided to fight him without healing with imperfect health. And this is how it went. Magneton is first, I go for Hypnosis, then use Shadow Ball, but Magneton wakes up, hits with Thunderbolt, doing a lot of damage. Next is Steelix. Obviously I need to put it to sleep. It's going to take probably 2 or 3 turns to knock out, but with the increased damage from Bad Dreams, I am able to 2-shot. That leaves only one more Pokemon for Byron, his ace Bastiodon. I actually have okay damage against this thing since Thunderbolt is neutral, but I went for Hypnosis trying to put it to sleep. Bastiodon sets up Iron Defense, which is useless, and then I put it to sleep. Alright, this is all going really well. I use Thunderbolt, it does a lot of damage. His ace heals with a Citrus Berry back into green health. I attack again, taking it down to red health, and then the Bastiodon wakes up, hits with Stone Edge, gets a critical hit, and knocks out Darkrai. I thought that I would just beat him on my very next attempt, but no, Hypnosis is really bad. It keeps missing, I lose to the Steelix, I come back in, make it to the Bastiodon, but it goes for Stone Edge again after I miss and knocks out Darkrai. This was all falling apart. I was even considering going back to the Pokemon Center and healing up before the fight, because in my 4th battle against him, my health is brought down to 14 by the time I knock out the Magneton, meaning I have to rely on Hypnosis if I want to win from here. I get the luck I need to pull through against the Steelix, even though Byron is using a bunch of healing items. Then Bastiodon comes in. Okay, Hypnosis, can you do this? I'm able to successfully put it to sleep. Thunderbolt does a lot of damage. His ace continues snoozing, and because of that, I'm able to attack it 2 more times and knock it out. Byron ended up being surprising, and you know who else was? Saturn. I often just skip by this fight because it's really irrelevant. Today, Thunderbolt one-shots the Golbat, but then the Toxicroak uses Revenge, inflicting massive damage. Darkrai does pull through on red health and knock out his ace on the next turn, leaving only Bronzor, but I'm not confident that I'm going to one-shot this thing. It's very defensive. I use Shadow Ball. I don't get the one-hit. Bronzor hits with Rock Tomb, but Darkrai hangs on. Also, the difference in speed between Darkrai and Bronzor is so extreme that even with -1, I still easily move first. But that was way closer than I was expecting. Mars is easy, then as I head towards Snowpoint City, I have to face Ace Trainer Dalton. This guy's always annoying. I save before him, even when I'm using a legendary Pokemon. And I am so glad that I did, because turn 1, he paralyzes with Electabuzz, and the fight gets sketchy. The Magmar does a ton of damage with Flamethrower, and I'm not able to one-shot, so it attacks 2 turns in a row, taking Darkrai down to 9 hit points. Dalton took Darkrai right to the edge. Up next is Candace in Snowpoint City. I was feeling pretty confident here. While I don't one-shot the Sneasel, I only take a small amount of damage from it. Then, by the time the Abomasnow goes down, Darkrai's around half health. The Frostlass has Snow Cloak, and the Abomasnow sets this up with Snow Warning, so I could miss with Shadow Ball here. Luckily, Darkrai doesn't. Piloswine's all that's left, but it does go for Stone Edge, inflicting a lot of damage. Still, Darkrai pulls through, but only on 20 hit points when all is said and done. With Candace defeated, I can now use Rock Climb outside of battle. This is key, because now I can backtrack past Dalton, climb up this ledge, and then pick up the TM for Ice Beam. I decided to not teach it right now, because Thunderbolt gives me what I need to manage Cyrus for a second time. Saturn isn't difficult this time around because he no longer has Revenge. It's been replaced by Brick Break. Unfortunately though, at the top of Mount Coronet, I do struggle in the multi-battle. After just barely not one-shotting the Golbat, I get hit by Toxic, and then the status condition is what causes Darkrai to lose. It is so painful looking down right now with a legendary Pokemon that is level 54, and its best Dark-type move is Feint Attack. Darkrai's attack is 129, and its special attack is 177. In the next attempt, I'm able to one-shot the Golbat, and then the rest of the fight is easy. Finishing this, Darkrai is level 55. I chose to use use rare candies now because Cyrus in the Distortion world is typically one of the most difficult battles, if not the most difficult battle in Pokemon Platinum. I've collected a total of 10 more candies, so I boost Darkrai up to level 65, which is one level short of getting access to Dark Void. At every point during this run, the game just seems like it's trying to frustrate me. Anyways, let's take on Cyrus. Thunderbolt is not able to knock out his Houndoom, so I get burned by Will-O-Wisp, and then Cyrus uses a full restore, chipping away at me with a status condition before I knock out his lead. Weavile is next. It goes for Fake Out, synergizing very well with the status condition. I am not able to one-shot. Its follow-up X-Scissor does tons of damage, and then the burn finishes Darkrai. As we go into the next fight, I just want you to know that backtracking through the Distortion world isn't really an option because it costs so much time. I know that I will be able to defeat Cyrus faster using Hypnosis, even if I have to use this inconsistent move on every single one of his Pokemon, rather than leaving the Distortion world, leveling up to 66, and then going all the way back through Mount Coronet and the Distortion world to get back to Cyrus. In the very next fight against Cyrus, things were not looking good. I'm missing my attacks on Weavile, and it takes Darkrai all the way down to 27 hit points. But I am able to put it to sleep, and then I get a lucky critical hit with Thunderbolt one-shotting. Gyarados is next, of course. Thunderbolt's gonna one-shot it, and his other two Pokemon are also flying types, so Thunderbolt is able to one-shot the Honchkrow. Crobat's pretty bulky, so I was worried about this one surviving, but its special defense is actually quite low, and as a result, Thunderbolt one-hits, and I pull through with a second attempt win against Cyrus. This just adds to the number of times that Darkrai has been able to luck through difficult battles without spending that much time resetting. Okay, so Volkner's gym is next. Typically, Volkner is a terrible gym leader because you're over-leveled after the Cyrus battle. Also, fighting the mandatory trainers inside of the gym levels Darkrai up to 66, and I teach Dark Void in the place of Hypnosis. Okay, Electric type specialist, hit me with all you've got. His first Pokemon is Jolteon. I go for Shadow Ball, and I am not able to one-shot, allowing the Jolteon to paralyze. Oh, this is not good. Then the Jolteon starts setting up with Charge Beam, and I consistently don't attack because of the status condition, having my health almost halved by the time I knock out Volkner's lead. And my damage ranges against the Raichu that follows are also bad. I have to two-shot here. If only I could have learned Dark Pulse by this time. So I take a loss against Volkner, and I come back in knowing that I need to use Dark Void. But then the Jolteon wakes up and paralyzes Darkrai before I knock it out anyway. Because of this, I take a second loss against the gym leader who is supposed to be easy. Unlike earlier in the playthrough though, third time is the charm here. I put the Jolteon to sleep, knock it out without getting statused, and then the Raichu goes to sleep, which causes Bad Dreams to chip away at it, giving me the knockout with Shadow Ball. Electivire goes to sleep, I knock it out, and that leaves only Luxray. While it is his most defensive Pokemon, the fact that it's come so late in the fight and I don't have a status condition means that I'm able to pull through with a win. At long last, we have arrived in Victory Road. I finish off the trainer who has Blissey using Dark Void, and then later in the cave, I am finally able to pick up the TM for Dark Pulse and replace Feint Attack at level 68, right before the final trainers in the game. The rival is a little bit scary because the Heracross using Close Combat deals more than half damage to Darkrai. Snorlax is next, and it has good special defense. That said, I can just use Dark Void, put it to sleep, and then Dark Pulse to two-shot. Rapidash, Roserade, and Empoleon are all one-shots. Now that Darkrai is finally living up to its full potential, it is time for the Elite Four. The first member is Aaron, the Bug-type specialist, which is technically super effective against Darkrai, but I have Thunderbolt for the Yanmega, which he starts off with. Then Heracross comes in, it goes for Stone Edge, which doesn't do that much. Scissor comes out, it goes for X-Scissor, and this one does a lot, taking Darkrai down to 30 hit points. I two-shot, one-shot the following Vespiquen after putting it to sleep with Dark Void, which wasn't necessary, leading to his final Pokemon Drapion. I think in order to win here, I need to use Dark Void. Unfortunately, it misses, and Aaron defeats Darkrai. This fight is frustrating because I am relying on Dark Void to hit here in two cases, against the Scissor and against the Drapion. If it doesn't, then he'll get me with 2 hits from X-Scissor. And while I am able to put the Drapion to sleep in my second attempt, it wakes up, uses X-Scissor, and Darkrai faints. I lost one more time to the Vespiquen trying to spam Dark Void. Don't do this, this is not the right choice. Anyways, finally, in the 4th attempt, I'm able to put everything to sleep that I need and knock out the Drapion. Bertha's next. This battle is so much easier. I just spam Dark Pulse over and over again, and while I'm not one-shotting all of her Pokemon, like the Golem survives, in the end Darkrai still pulls through with green health. Flint is typically really bad in these playthroughs, but the previous battles where this was true, like against Byron, have not gone according to plan for Darkrai today. However, here against Flint, finally something makes sense. He is not challenging for Darkrai. That leads to Lucian, who is a Psychic type specialist, and as a result, my Dark type easily speeds through his team members. By the time I knock out his final Pokemon, which is the Bronzong, which of course survives a single hit from Dark Pulse, I have leveled up to 75. So, for the final battle in the game, Darkrai is going to have access to Nasty Plot. This kind of feels like a movie. Throughout the entire thing, Darkrai has been struggling, but now, where it really counts, it gets its second wind, and it's able to absolutely crush Cynthia with this amazing setup move. At least, that's what I think is going to happen. Spiritomb is first, and it's pretty defensive, giving me time to set up. But it does have super effective damage in the form of Silver Wind. But it's not doing enough to make me stop setting up with Nasty Plot. And because of Darkrai's incredibly high speed stat, I will be moving first against all of her other Pokemon. I finish off the Spiritomb with a single hit at +6. She sends in Lucario next, I go for Thunderbolt, which is neutral, and I one-shot. Togekiss goes down to Thunderbolt, Garchomp comes in, Dark Pulse one-hits, Thunderbolt takes care of the Milotic, leaving only Roserade, and Dark Pulse finishes it. Darkrai gets a time of 2 hours, 27 minutes, and 41 seconds, with 17 resets and 1 blackout for a total of 18 faults. It finished the game at level 75 with a game time of 7 hours and 27 minutes. In terms of tier list performance, I think that we all know what's going to happen. Darkrai didn't do very well today. At least it didn't do very well when we consider that it's a legendary Pokemon. Also, as far as the Dark type goes, Darkrai wasn't very good. Honchkrow is currently in the first place spot overall out of every Pokemon I have used so far. Spiritomb was able to earn results that got it a placement in the A tier, and then Weavile is my third place Dark type in the B tier. Unfortunately for Darkrai, it did not perform as well, earning itself the last position in the B tier behind Weavile. It's also behind Chatot, which I find absolutely hilarious. That little bird was actually pretty decent in Pokemon Platinum. Darkrai, on the other hand, was a big disappointment. If we put its results in context of all of the other Dark types, right now it is in 4th place. The only 2 other Dark types that are lower ranked also have the Poison type, which is one of the worst types to do a solo challenge with. I wanted to end this video with a little bit of positivity for Darkrai, so I looked through its future generation sets to see if maybe in a different series this Pokemon might perform better. In Generation 5, it gets the same set that it has here in Generation 4, and that is not a good omen, because what it means is that movesets kind of stabilized in Generation 4, and then going forward into future generations, there are going to be less and less changes made to them. Looking at Generation 6, things are pretty much exactly the same, so I don't have high hopes for Darkrai in future Pokemon solo challenges. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much, it means the world to me. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video.